In this lesson, we'll be looking at the area of shapes, and then later on in the week, we will be finding the area of some composite figures. So we'll start with a triangle, and this is a little review from Friday. The area of a triangle, the formula for that would be area equals 1/2 base times height. The height of the triangle is identified from the top vertex straight down perpendicular to the base. So when you see that line created with a 90-degree angle, that is how we measure our height there. And then our base would be the bottom of that. Our first triangle has a base measure of 2 kilometers, and then the height from this top point straight down to the base is 3.8 kilometers. So we would multiply this, or we would set it up as area equals 1/2 times 2 times 3.8. And again, this 2 is kilometers and the 3.8 is kilometers. So when we multiply that, that's going to give us a kilometer squared situation. Half of 2 is 1. When we multiply 1 and 3.8, that gives us 3 and 8/10 kilometers squared for our area of that triangle. The next triangle, we have a base, but we do not have this base measure. And we have a height, but it's not set up as what a height would look like. So what we have to envision here is this triangle kind of spun, and I'll actually spin it around here. When we have the triangle spun around, we can see the base and the height. We can see that the base is 3 and 5/10 yards, and the height of this triangle is 4 and 1/10 yard. So our formula is area equals 1/2 of 3 and 5/10 times 4 and 1/10. When we multiply the half by 3 and 5/10, that gives us 1 and 75/100. We'll finish by multiplying that by 4 and 1/10, and that gives us 7 and 175 thousandths, and this is yards squared for our area of that triangle. The next shape we'll look at is a square. To find the area of a square, square has 4 equal sides, so that would be side times side, or side squared. In our given example, we have a square that is 2 and 6/10 yards by 2 and 6/10 yards. So when we find the area here, area equals 2 and 6/10 times 2 and 6/10. When we multiply that, we end up getting 6 and 76/100, and it's yards by yards, so that would give us yards squared. Our next shape is a rectangle, very similar to a square. Instead of being side by side, though, it is a width and a length. So we set it up as area equals length times width. Our length is 4 and 1/10 mile, and our width is 3 miles. When we multiply this here, 3 times 4 is 12, and 3 times 1/10 is 3/10, so that will leave us with 12 and 3/10 miles squared for our area of this rectangle. Our next shape that we're going to look at is a parallelogram. A parallelogram has a set of parallel sides on top and bottom and left and right there. So it's 2 pairs of parallel sides are parallelograms. And just like a rectangle, instead of it being length and a width, we're going to multiply the base and the height now. So the base times height. Our base here is 5 in our first example, and our height is 4 and 2/10 yards. So when we multiply 5 times 4 and 2/10, we have area equals 5 times 4 and 2/10. This gives us an area of 21 yards squared. Our next example, our base and height are given. This is like one of the triangles where we have to kind of spin it again. So we'll just spin it so we have the base and the height, so it looks that way. Our base is 1.8 feet, so area equals 1 8/10 feet times the height of 1 1/10 feet. When we multiply, we end up with an area of 1 98/100 feet squared. Our last shape is a trapezoid, and a trapezoid is a quadrilateral with one set of parallel lines, so we would identify those as base 1 and base 2. And the formula for the area of a trapezoid is area equals 1/2 times the height times the sum of base 1 and base 2. So if we plug our givens into this formula, its area equals 1/2 times our height of 1 3/10, and then we're going to multiply that by the sum of base 1 and base 2, which was 1 2/10 plus 4. 1 2/10 plus 4 gives us 5 2/10, so we're left with 1/2 times 1 3/10 times 5 2/10. When we multiply 1/2 by 1 3/10, we get 65/100, and we'll multiply that by 5 2/10. When we multiply it by 5 2/10, we are left with 3 38/100, and that is meters squared for our area.